welcome back to the show, third and final segment of the show. So happy that you decided to stay with me, and you just don't know how much you mean to me. The way you tune in, the way you view the videos, the way you comment, share the content, I'm indebted to you, and I really appreciate having you along the ride here on the Tech Zone. Remember, you can always connect with me, PaulAmadeusLane.com. You can catch up on the episodes. This is episode number 38. We're almost at 50 some odd episodes. My mom used to use that term, some odd. I had no idea what it meant. When I was growing up, she said she had $3 and some odd cents. And took me until I got over 20 years old to know what in the world my mom was talking about. But so happy to have you. So happy to have you. What we're going to talk about now is something that you may not be familiar with. Well, if you are, our next guest is really going to explain it in more detail. I'm talking about blockchains. What are blockchains? And why are companies out there using this platform, this technology, to really help to solve industry-related problems? Let's let our next guest answer that for us. And I'm so happy to have with me right now the Senior Director of Business Development for GEM. We have Joseph Bradley. Joseph, how you doing, my friend?
I am well, Paul. How are you doing?
Joseph, I'm doing fantastic. So when we look at the innovation that you guys are doing over there at GEM, what makes you guys different from your competitors out there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly one that warrants a good answer, because there's a lot of confusion in the blockchain space in terms of where companies fit and how companies are positioning. So just quickly, so when we talk about blockchain, GEM works in the blockchain space, and when we talk about blockchain, it's important to understand that blockchain is actually the protocol. It's actually just a low-level protocol. So it's a new and novel way that of connecting and transacting disparate data sets. So what GEM produces is a core product called GEM OS, and the OS stands for operating system. And the way that we have posed this solution in the marketplace is that we are a blockchain agnostic operating system. So what does that mean in kind of in more relatable parlance, I guess? That means that we take existing tech stacks, we enable them with blockchain, and we allow them to communicate in a new and novel way that unlocks kind of next generation products and services based on the functionality of blockchain.
So when we look at the industries out there that your platform is tailor-made for, we know it's healthcare, and we look at supply chain as well. So why don't we take both of them? We'll take first healthcare. The innovation that you guys are doing out there, how is it benefiting those in the healthcare field?
Sure. So I think this warrants just a brief kind of level setting in terms of context. So with blockchain solutions, kind of approachable industries, or industries that could benefit from blockchain enablement, it really comes down to a couple of things. You're looking for complex data ecosystems that could benefit from some of the functionality that the protocol exhibits. So some of that functionality would be, as transactions are banked on the protocol, it creates an immutable audit log, and then after those transactions are banked, you can then go back and permission granular access to this immutable record of transactions. So that was one of the reasons that we were attracted to healthcare. When you look at some of the healthcare acts from the past couple of decades, HIPAA and high tech specifically, some of the spirit of those acts really was quite difficult, if not impossible, to really be executed and optimized without a technology like blockchain. And then, of course, blockchain emerged in late 2008, early 2009. Was adopted first by finance, and then I'd say the second big wave has been healthcare, because of the characteristics that the data in healthcare exhibits. And so our customers, what we're seeing is that there are huge interoperability issues in healthcare. There are, as I said, many mandated regulatory concerns around acts like HIPAA and high tech. And so what we really seek to do is go in and create some efficiency in some of the processes and protocols that folks in healthcare already are engaged in. And so that's really kind of where we've seen our beachheads are things like with Capital One, revenue cycle management. That was a project that we did late last year. And then another one of our large clients from 2016 was Philips Healthcare. And we worked with them on a kind of coordinated care cycle program. So that's really it, just kind of bridging these data islands, Paul.
And I know when it comes to healthcare now, we have a lot more platforms than we had, let's say, 20 years ago with the apps, and then you have the network, and then you have the users. So at Jim, you kind of make that process a little bit more secure and a little bit more easier for those out there.
That's exactly right. I mean, we think that there's a kind of a larger narrative that's emerging, and that is that, data truly is kind of the master asset class. And when we look at it, data has always been produced, has always been around, has always been available, but until very recently, we haven't had the technology to be able to capture, collate, and really kind of make sense of these massive data sets that are available. And so we think that blockchain is certainly a great start in terms of allowing transactions in disparate data and kind of the natural habitat of data, which is distributed, to kind of enable this functionality of a blockchain, which is again the immutable audit log, and then being able to permission granular access after the transactions are banked. We see that those two really compelling aspects of the blockchain, then coupled with current processes and protocols, really makes for some compelling use cases in terms of getting these data ecosystems properly configured for the data sharing and data management that's going to be necessary in the future of healthcare. We think that the way that these businesses made money in the past 100 years will not be the same way that they make money in the next 100 years. And frankly, our clients agree with us.
And what has been like the biggest challenge when it comes to healthcare and your platform that you've created for it? Has there been any challenges in implementing it?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, aside from the kind of classic, I guess, way that it's put, the kind of startup struggles or whatever. Aside from that, I think that we have chosen to work in a very nascent technology. I mean, that's kind of why the people at Jim, have been attracted to work here, actually come from kind of a classic finance background. And the potentiality for blockchain is massive. So I think that we're in this really interesting position where, we end up with our clients kind of developing on kind of both ends of our solution, I guess, if you will, because the marketplace is not really ready to consume Gem OS just out of a box. We have a high level of configuration that has to happen, with our customers. So I think ultimately, just to kind of answer your question head on, we're working in a very new technology. We're a very agile startup, even though we have 20 plus people that are currently employed at Jim. It's really just kind of serving as that evangelist for the technology. But then at the same time, Paul, and this is really the most important thing for us in 2017, certainly, is delivering projects that have a shortened time horizon in terms of ROI. And that's something that, we haven't really seen a lot in the blockchain space. There's been a lot of kind of forward-leaning and aspirational projects that have taken flight, but we are really focusing in and saying, okay, how are we going to ultimately, show you an ROI that you can point to and frankly, talk about with your stakeholders beyond the execution of our project. So.
All about the return on investment, right?
That is correct, sir.
And, let's talk about, too, what you guys are doing with building in an inclusive ecosystem of connected companies and technologies. Well, let's talk about what you guys are doing in that sphere.
Sure. So we see blockchain technology being adopted in kind of a multi-phase kind of timeline. Immediately, we think that and I guess really what I'm looking to provide kind of with this next couple of sentences is just a little bit of context around why the goal is to connect companies in this way. So we see that immediately companies that oftentimes we talk about companies in terms of being, I say the marketplace thinks of them in terms of being kind of these monoliths that march, lockstep. And that's just not the reality of the way that business works, even inside a company's firewall. Oftentimes there's conflicting agency, whether that be between, finance or the supply chain or whatever the case may be. And really it's hard to understand how a simple transaction or relatively simple transaction affects all of the data in a company's ecosystem. So what we do is we go in and we enable that kind of closed system of disparate data to be enabled by a blockchain. And the company certainly experiences efficiencies in that, and we can point to an ROI on that and roll these projects out. But then past that, and we think that this is really kind of the way that technology is headed. As I mentioned before, data is emerging as the master asset class. This is going to be the most important thing that companies and people and devices produce. And so we see that ultimately there are so many innovations that are going to be able to, and innovations and frankly discoveries that are going to be enabled once there is a collective intelligence that is able to be utilized around industries and ultimately economies. And so, the first stage is really to build with projects that are easy to understand and are very approachable, and that we can, point to a return on investment for our clients. But then ultimately, the goal is to really enable data sharing across companies, and then across companies and industries, and then across industries, as we kind of push towards this data web or Web 3.0 that we think is kind of the future of the way that commerce happens. So it's really kind of pushing towards that goal of data commerce, and that starts with small projects, ramps up through companies, and then the kind of logical conclusion of that is allowing complex data sharing across massive organizations, and ultimately unlocking kind of a new understanding of value in this new schema of a data economy.
And one thing that your company does well, and that is you can different companies and organizations that can fit the platform over at Jim. You can give them, they can find out their data IQ. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, as I kind of implied a little bit earlier, if you think about it, it's hard to understand how one transaction can kind of affect, your whole data ecosystem within a company. And so if you think about it in terms of just degrees of separation, there may be a decision, Paul, if you and I are running a company that we make, and that decision is going to necessitate state changes in data. So because we made this decision, certain data sets are going to need to reflect the decision that's been made. It makes sense. But understanding how that happens is incredibly difficult to do. And the reason is because, blockchain, as I said, is a nascent technology. And so, frankly, look, if blockchain would have been invented in 1988 instead of 2008, it would already be implemented. But instead, you kind of have this Galapagos Island thing that has happened where, these legacy tech stacks have developed without, being connected to each other. And so in a nutshell, if you think about it, just one one transaction way over here, kind of on the left side, may ultimately be connected back to, or need to be connected back to, some piece of data that is on the far other edge of your data ecosystem. But how do you make that connectivity? And so what we believe is that if you enable this data ecosystem with blockchain, and then you hire Jim to come in and configure your current systems through this new blockchain schema, that you're able to really understand what that data IQ is, meaning that you get what's happening. You get what's happening in your system, and there nothing gets lost in the mix, I guess, if you will.
And when we look at where the company is at today and where you guys started, did you guys ever think that, wow, we'll be having this many clients, we'll be doing this? How did the company start off? Did it start off with the same vision that you have now? Or did you guys have to kind of change the vision because technology is ever evolving?
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's a great question. I think we were very, very fortunate in that the CEO of our company, Micah Winklespect, is an engineer, is a developer, and when the Bitcoin blockchain first came out, it was really interesting to him, and I've got to say, as somebody who is customer facing, this certainly makes my job much easier, in that Micah has really always been about kind of acknowledging a blockchain protocol as a new and novel way for transacting critical data. But ultimately, whether that data is a cryptocurrency or is a complex financial transaction, say a derivatives trade or something like that, or information related to your electronic health record, or some sort of critical data around a supply chain. Ultimately, these are just different types of data. And so, I've got to say that's something that certainly, attracted me to the group a while back, was that, really they've kind of been whistling the same tune for a while, which is, blockchain is not fintech. It's about data. It's about data exchange. And if we believe that our world is kind of hurtling towards this schema of everything being connected to everything, you have to be able to ensure, integrity in this interconnected world, data integrity in this interconnected world. And that's really what the technology, that it really strikes at the heart of that comment of, data integrity kind of at the edges, if you will. And so that's a vision that Mike has had for a while. But look, ultimately you've got to deliver within a framework that the market understands and is ready for. And so, we've been very fortunate in that our clients are forward looking and forward facing and very interested in kind of the what's next. And so, us as technologists and them as kind of, functional sector experts has really proven to be a great partnership. And, I've got to say it all kind of came together very organically. But, if there's one thing I want to get across, that it is that blockchains are about data. And that's something that Jim, believes at its very core. And we've been able to kind of fly that flag since day one. And
you also help your clients to find out the hidden cost of trust too, because there's a hidden cost when it comes to trust.
That's exactly right. And that concept is kind of far out, right? Because if you think about the things that we do every single day, and there's a certain kind of trust premium that is priced in, and we just really have no idea, what that is. And it's just been such a fundamental part of human commerce that it's really difficult to kind of back that out. But what we're seeing is that is that it is kind of possible to start understanding exactly what that hidden cost is in terms of manpower and kind of bottom line sapping effort that's necessary to kind of to bring that to conduct business in the way that we're used to. Let me give you just a quick example. of what we're talking about. And it's kind of philosophic, but I'll keep it short. If you think about, if you go to a bar and you order a mixed drink, and the bartender makes that drink, well, you're kind of a part of that, which is very difficult for us to kind of understand or finger necessarily. But a component of what you're paying for is that what is going to be in that drink is actually what you thought that is going to be in that drink. If you order, a whiskey, you expect there not to be gin in there, right? And so, a portion of what you're paying for is trust that what you expected to happen is going to actually happen. Well, if we can take that concept of what you expect to happen actually happening, and instead of saying, but Paul and Joseph saying, in some qualitative way, well, what's your expectation? Well, what's your expectation? Okay, well, let's try to, move closer to man it to, kind of this level setting of our expectations. If we can remove that qualitative perspective and instead can manage that same process through math, through cryptography, then arguably we start to kind of strip out what that, this kind of loosey-goosey kind of qualitative concept of trust in an economy is. And so, so that's what we believe is currently happening.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Now, before we let you go, is there anything on the horizon with the company, for Jim that you like to let the listener and viewer know about what's in the future for Jim?
Yeah, certainly. Well, thanks for the opportunity to plug. We always we always appreciate that. Here at Jim, we are squarely concerned. Not concerned. We are squarely marching towards delivering projects with real ROI. For our customers. Our beachhead is healthcare. You can expect to hear some exciting announcements coming from some of the work that we're doing in healthcare. We're actually in the process of onboarding 3 more clients in the next 30 days. So we're going to have some interesting announcements coming out about that. And then, of course, we're exploring some other areas kind of as the market, asks for some of our expertise in those areas. But ultimately, Paul, I think the point is that, the way that human beings conduct commerce is changing. We're going to see the fact that really data kind of dictates all. And, we look forward to playing our part and pushing that forward and, being great partners for our clients and really, kind of embodying this future where, he or she who creates data is remunerated for the value that they've put into the system. And so, that's ultimately where we're headed. Where do we start? We start with, demanding that our clients do deep due diligence on our group, asking the same from them, and really aligning projects that are going to be impactful and scalable. And so that's our concentration through 2017. And, I'll certainly be excited to check in with you here in a couple months, and you can take a look at our progress, and I'm sure we'll have more to.
That sounds good. I think what you guys are doing out there is amazing. And who would have thought, 30 years ago, we would have the technology to pull what you guys are pulling off over at Jim. We are definitely living in spectacular times, Joseph.
The future is now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, hey, we look forward to chatting with you real soon, and take care of yourself. All right. And, before I let you go, how can maybe there's a company out there in the health industry who may want to check out some of your platforms and what you guys have. How can they do that?
Yeah. So if you want to head over to gem.co, that is GEM.co. There's some information on our website. We would absolutely encourage people to reach out to us directly, and we'll set up a call and see if we can't help you out. But we here at Gem, we're huge evangelists for the technology as a whole, and of course, we like to talk about what we do too. So would be more than happy to speak with anyone that's interested and be as much of a information hub as we possibly can.
Awesome. Joseph, it's been a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Look forward to catching up with you in a few months.
Yeah, you bet, Paul. Thanks very much.
I'd like to thank Joseph Bradley from Jim. Enjoy talking to Joseph. The things that they're doing over at Jim, it's truly amazing. See, those are things that you may not know about when it comes to the inner working of technology, when it comes to the data silos and all. See, you got smarter today, didn't you? That's why you want to tune in to the Tech Zone each and every week. Well, until next time, thank you so much. I'm on my way to WonderCon in Anaheim, California. Check out some the new shows that are coming out, existing shows, get a chance to interview some stars out there, some actors and actresses, and make sure you follow me. Go to my website, paulamadeouslane.com, and there you can follow me on social media. You can follow me on the Twitter. Yes, you can. And you can find out some of the things that we'll be showing at WonderCon. And a big shout out to my folks over at LiveView who partnered with me for the live coverage that we'll be having at WonderCon. All right, until next time, gang, remember, turn someone's frown into a smile, leave someone in a better mood in which you received them. Until next time, I'm Paul Amadeus Lane. This is the Tech Zone. Take care of yourself.